I'm just going to start recording. And
Okay.
so I just want to clarify in terms of date, July 18th, 2025, my full name, Lisa Noel Volding. And Riley, do you want to state your name and any
My name
other
is
names?
William. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. My name is William Sascha Riley. I was born Manuel Sascha Barros,
Okay.
but my legal name is William Sascha Riley at this time.
Okay. And I'm just so we're clear, I'm based in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I lived in the United States full time for a bunch of years, but I was brought up in Canada. My citizenship's
Well,
Canadian, and
we might be neighbors at some point because Canada is right now number 2 on the list of the countries that I am potentially going to move to.
I think it's a good place to look. There's a lot of Americans actually. I've spoken to Americans that I've told to come here, and there's lots of Americans that have come to visit more, and it's a lot more embracing, inclusive of a culture. So, you know, it's quite lovely. I
Yeah.
recommend. In terms of what my approach, really, what I wanted to do is like to just really like a thorough discussion. You tell me everything that you've been wanting to say, and
Okay.
I'll ask some questions. This might be one of like however many discussions, and I'll record them. If it's one, if it's 10, and what I'd like to do, I'm sort of recording with an eye to your testimony, getting your testimony of what you
Okay.
experienced, what abuse you suffered, and what you were witness to. And an eye in terms of being able to get into a format in terms of affidavits, whether we look at getting help from the International Criminal Court, because obviously what you and I have discussed already, there's definitely a whole whack of crimes that have been getting committed by a lot of folks, and is even a case where there could be crimes against humanity charges in regards to Trump.
Okay.
So, and what else I'd like to do is I'd like to look at whether you would be okay with me like transcribing and then publishing something. I publish newsletters selectively. I have a newsletter called Outlaws of Chivalry. Publish once in a while, and I was looking at perhaps publishing there if you're okay in terms of how it could help us in terms of getting the right legal support in terms of the International War Court.
I am for whatever puts a light on this because in my mind the powers that be are already aware of my position on it and aware that I have spoken up, and
Yeah.
the more light that is shed on there, I don't think that I'm incurring more risk, except for some maybe lunatic that wants to uh, be a soldier for Donald Trump because they are a little crazy. They're a little brainwashed, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind whatever would bring a little bit more light to this, particularly the stuff. If we can get some of this stuff verified, and I know that me speaking up is one thing, but then the verification process,
Yeah.
uh, is important too. And I have read about software where facial recognition software that taps into the banks of known cataloged child pornography. So if the films that they had me make can be verified, it's not something that I can go online, but I am confident that it's there because somebody that I served with in the Army got put out of the Army for child pornography, and my chain of command talked to me and they said, hey, some of these images, some of the films or whatever that he had looked just like you. And that was the first time I think I had ever talked to anybody about having done those films. And I told them, yes, when I was a child, I had to do those things.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk a little bit
I'm
more about that circumstance. Like, so you were in
okay.
the Army. What years were you in the Army then?
This would have been my second time in the Army. I rejoined in, 2002.
Yeah.
And I retired in 2016. I was in from 91 to 98 as well. So I did a little over 21 years. But the time frame that they pulled me into the office and discussed that would have been around 2008, 2009 time frame. It was obviously in garrison, so it was between deployments.
Yeah.
So around that time is when they talked to me, and yeah, I can just remember. I can remember telling them that I knew it was out there. There was nothing I could do about it, and thinking that there was really no way to go about, anything at that point. I didn't know what I could do about it, if anything.
Yeah. So it was from when our emails, it was one of the fellow soldiers that was caught with a bunch of child pornography, and then your commanding officer pulled you into the office to go through and said they'd seen you in the films.
I did not look at any of the films. All they said was, hey, we had to look at some of this stuff, and one of those people looks just like you. And that's the first time that I had, I think, ever really spoken about it. And I said, yes, those are probably me. But I did not personally see them. But they described something that I knew that I had been a part of.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Here's what it
more?
Was.
Yeah.
They pulled me in. I can remember First Sergeant Bayless was kind of red-faced, and he said, "Have you ever made a movie with a black girl?" And that obviously was. I mean, I'm not a movie star, so obviously that's a very odd question, and I knew exactly what he was talking about when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
So I said yes. So he said, "Okay, well, we have found some images that are of a sexually explicit nature on another soldier's computer, I think, and they look like you." And I said, "Well, they are me." So he said, "And you look underage." I think from that was part of their investigation to confirm that the images of the participants in these films were underage. Mm-hmm. So, that was just a secondary verification that, I was only 12 or 13 at the time of that film, maybe even 11. So, I mean, obviously I'm not an adult. And even when I was an adult at 18 or 19, I still looked young. So obviously at 11, 12, whatever I was in that film, I would not have looked like a mature, an adult, Mm-hmm. So it was more, I think, for confirmation that these images were of children. So I don't remember if he actually got court-martialed or if he just got UCMJ, which is just their lower grade of punishment. But I do know that he was chaptered out of the military over it. I think he might have had to do a little jail time, but I don't recall. I can't even recall the soldier's name that got caught with it. I just knew he was an NCO, a staff sergeant.
And did anyone else ever talk to you about the films again? Did they ever talk? Did they ever infer that there was any further investigation in terms to when the films were produced? Did they ask you anything about who was involved, or did they?
No. They didn't go into any legality other than the prosecution of the soldier with the images. So in the military is a little bit different than civilian. I don't want to call it the court system because it's just the officers and NCOs in the military, but they have their sphere of influence. They have their little scope of operation, and if they uncover more, I think that they're required to give it to the civilian authorities, but they don't have any jurisdiction to go further than to just prosecute the soldier for the infraction that he is guilty of, if that makes sense the way I'm saying it.
No, I understand. Do they have any duty or is there any legality, or do they have legal requirements to inform civilian prosecutors of
Yes,
such cases?
yes.
Okay.
If they suspect or I if there's additional wrongdoing that is outside of their scope of being able to prosecute, and in this case, to hold the individual soldier accountable for having this material that he's not supposed to have,
Yeah.
they prosecute that portion of it. If it is beyond what they can prosecute, then they refer the soldier to civilian court systems. But in this case, the military did handle the prosecution of the soldier, and I think all he got was like 30 days and reduction in rank to E1. They kicked him out of the Army, gave him a less than honorable discharge, I think. I don't think he even got a bad conduct for that, but I know that he was put out of the military. And I think he did the 30 days in jail. I think is the most that they can give you at the at the level that they prosecuted him at. So I'm not saying that for sure on the jail time, but I do know for a fact he was put out of the military.
Okay. So they had films. They had some of those
Hable was
films.
his name.
Cable?
Yes, Hable. That was his last name. Habel, I think. Staff Sergeant Hable. I just remembered it. Because I could picture his face, and I just couldn't remember his name.
Hable. Okay. Habel.
Yes, I'm relatively certain on that name. I don't have the best memory. I was in a blast in Iraq, and one of the things that I struggle with mightily are names.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly sure that's his name.
Okay. And in terms of the films they had, so there was obviously a collection of pornography. Is there anyone you're in contact with of those your commanding officers that would they talk to you? Would they provide evidence, or is it a situation where
Michael Bayless is the only one that I remember speaking to about it. I have not spoken to him since I left Fort Carson in 2011. I would think that he would probably remember something like that, just the unusualness of it. First sergeants deal with things day in and day out, but I would think that he would remember that just because of how it's not every day that you have to deal with something like that,
Yeah.
But it is possible. I think my commanding officer's name at that time was Captain Colasanto, but I'm not sure because you get commanding officers come and go. The first sergeants, they tend to stick around longer.
Yeah.
But commanding officers are a lot of times they're only there for a year or two, and then they're off to the next thing. So my recollection of the commanding officer may not be accurate.
What's the spelling of his last name? Colasanto?
Cola, Colasanto.
Okay. Saint Cola.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you think would be helpful to talk about right now about then, the time frame? That was the first time anyone had ever mentioned to you anything about the films other than when you were involved in filming? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The first time that I can recall anybody that it ever coming up, I always knew that they were, that the films, at least one or two of them were out there. I don't even know how many times I was filmed. But I can tell you that some of them are extraordinarily horrible. I can give you one instance where they were filming us. It was me and a girl that I knew that I had been trafficked with in other venues. And while we were filming, they came in and shot her in the head. So So killed her, obviously. So that would be...
Was that the runaway?
That was another girl, and I can't even remember her name. Yeah. The runaway was tortured to death in a duplex in Enterprise, Alabama. My parents did that, and that wasn't on film, not her being tortured, but that was that black girl that I'm telling you about that later on Michael Bayless had talked to me about. But they went and got her because they were afraid that this was after the investigation in Tennessee, and they were afraid that they would go down for child pornography. So they were wanting to kill her, and then they were wanting to get rid of me via an accident, but they couldn't because they had already tried to kill me several times. They had the incident in Texas involving the Chevy van. There was another instance in Texas where my dad threw me into the middle of a pool and said, "Sink or swim." And somebody saw it and called the sheriff. So there was a police report on that. And then there was a third instance in Texas where my dad threw me down a flight of stairs. And that one fractured my skull. Now, there may have been other things that happened as well, but I remember those three were enough that they generated an investigation.
Yeah.
There were enough things that happened in Texas that my dad moved from Texas to Tennessee and then got in trouble in Tennessee and then got in trouble in Tennessee and then moved to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, and then we just moved one more time.
And you're talking about
Alabama.
Your adoptive dad, William Kyle Riley, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have located my birth parents. My birth mother lives in Sierra Vista, and my birth father lives in Edmond, Oklahoma. But as yet, I have not reached out to either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I just, within the last year, probably 6 months, I learned where they live.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's just an odd dynamic for me, and I'm still kind of processing that. But as far as family goes, I have a half-sister up in Massachusetts, and that's about it.
Okay. And your adopted dad, William Kyle Riley, worked as a pilot and was involved integrally in the Epstein-Trump
in all kinds of things.
Yeah. And he worked a lot with Trump and Epstein, correct?
I know that he was around Epstein and worked with Epstein. And I want to say that he flew for Epstein. And if not for Epstein directly, like transporting Epstein himself, he did transport some of the rich people to and from these parties that Epstein and company hosted. It wasn't just him. It was kind of a cabal of several people, and Epstein was the lead coordinator, maybe you would call it. But it's much more than just him as an individual. You know, it was people like him, like Trump, other people, and I can't remember, like how many, but he was handy to have around because he was a part of the process, and he isn't just like an airline pilot or something like that. He can fly anything. He can fly helicopters, fixed wing, smaller aircraft, larger aircraft. I mean, he's that pilot, that multi-purpose guy that could transport whatever you needed.
Okay. So
and I don't know if he ever got into the drugs. I can remember him talking at one point, and he had refused to do a drug run, basically, and somebody else took that drug run, and they got busted.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of aircraft it was or whatever, and it was around Florida that guy got busted. Maybe he flew down to the Virgin Islands or something like that. I can't remember these specific details, but I can remember the conversation that my dad had talking about, thank God I didn't take that. And because the guy got busted and he wound up, huge amount of charges, 25 to life or whatever the heck he got. But I can remember from his perspective, being nervous because the people that he was working with, he was scared that they were going to set him up to take the fall for something to just get rid of him because he had been involved in so much other criminality that he was really nervous about taking on anything else. I know that's kind of word salad the way that I said it, but I think you kind of understand what I'm saying.
I do. No, I understand. I understand perfectly. So your dad would obviously, my understanding is your dad was the kind of pilot that those sort of criminals would want to use because they could use him to fly anything in any situation, to airlift Trump out, like you said, when you almost killed Trump, when Trump was assaulting you, or
I don't
fly
think my dad was
guests
the pilot in that one. But,
he wasn't a pilot in that case?
That kind of pilot, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But.
No, that's okay. So, yeah, I've got, I've spoken to folks that, they look for those sorts of pilots. They want pilots that can get guests of traffickers into situations in and out discreetly, trafficking victims in and out of situations discreetly, and victims that they've killed out of situations discreetly, all sorts of nonsense. So seems like
and that's what he did. He shuttled the people, but I can remember him not wanting to cross the bridge over to running drugs.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, if he got caught with some people, he could just play dumb, and I was just transporting this guy's kid to, from the, here to there. I didn't know anything. So
did your dad...
I go ahead.
Did your dad transport the victims most often?
Oh, absolutely.
So more victims than guests. I don't want to call them guests.
I would say more guests than victims,
okay.
But he definitely transported both.
Okay. And that was either directly for Epstein, like wasn't transporting Epstein so much as Epstein's victims and Epstein's guests.
And the clients.
Okay,
yes.
The clients.
But he was definitely around Epstein. I can remember the one time that I can remember meeting both of them, and I can't even remember Jeffrey hardly at all, but I can remember the conversation in the car where they kept asking how to say Ghislaine's name because it was unusual, and during that meeting, my mom wanted to get the name right, for whatever. That was important to her,
Yeah. What's your mom's name again?
Her name was Mary Lynn Riley. This would be kind of my third mom because my dad adopted me with a lady named Irene Ursula Litsky was her maiden name. Mm-hmm. Her name is Peter now. But those two adopted me. He got divorced from Irene in 79 or 80 and almost immediately married Lynn. So Irene may have been involved in some of that, but that would be from a time frame that I don't have clear recollection of. I do have clear recollection of Mary Lynn Riley's involvement, but she died via suicide a number of years ago.
Okay. Now, what are you most comfortable to talk about next? I mean, well, let me ask some more questions in terms of the... Now, you told me about Trump and about Biggs and about Jordan. I feel like that's important to discuss in details. And let me ask you a question. Do you think it's more helpful for you to talk about what you remember first, when you were first trafficked, the circumstances, individuals involved, or do you want to talk about some of the incidents that we spoke about a bit by email already? What do you think is most helpful for you?
Fill in whatever gaps in that I can. I have spoken to you about most of what I remember clearly, but I can give you some of the details with those three, and that's why I am willing to talk about them.
Yeah.
There's no. I remember more things, but I just can't. I can't give you much in the way of detail for anybody other than those three. I can remember Jim Jordan. I went to a party. This was at a farm. There were I don't know, 25 to 50 people there. I mean, it was a good amount of people, but not a massive crowd by any stretch. But the experience that my dad sold to those people was, if you could pin me, then you could do whatever you wanted. But my dad had taught me how to fight. He had been a bare knuckle brawler earlier in his life, and I know that he had worked kind of just beating people up for a little extra money at one point in his life. He also entered into like the tough man contest, stuff like that. So it was kind of a game for them, because I was just a child. So you would think that you could just do whatever you wanted, but if they got anywhere near me, I would hit them. And by the time that Jim Jordan assaulted me, I was old enough that those adults, most of them not being athletic in any way, these are people that, they're not fighters by any stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get anywhere near me, and Jim Jordan just sort of rushed me and tackled me, and I might have known how to fight, but I didn't know how to wrestle. So he assaulted me in front of a crowd, and I think that it was filmed, but I can't swear that it was filmed, but it was in front of those 25 or 50 people.
And how old were you?
That's why I remembered. I was around 12.
12.
When that happened.
And of those 25, 50 people... sorry, go ahead.
The reason that I remember Jim Jordan is, first, he stood out because he wasn't that much. He's only like 7 or 8 years older than me. So at the time frame that I'm at 12, he is right around just graduating high school, maybe first year or two of college, right? So him being so much younger stood out. And then I remembered his jawline. He has a very pronounced jawline. I remembered his voice. And his mannerisms haven't changed throughout his life either. So when I really started, as soon as Trump went down that escalator and said he was running for president, I got involved in politics. I started watching it. I started watching who supported him and everything like that. And I remember Jim Jordan just from watching him on the floor of Congress, speaking to the different people that go up there and testify. So, and that's him. I just remembered him. So
yeah,
I know that's not a lot, but you give me a polygraph, I'm going to take it, because I'm 100% sure that it was him.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy Biggs, I remember, because on the way to this, they took me to a house. This wasn't at a party. This was later, after I had assaulted Trump, and it was kind of a punishment type of thing, where he was going to get to assault me and I guess not pay my parents, and he got to do whatever he wanted. And I can remember telling me I wasn't allowed to fight back or they'd kill me, and all of this. But they must have said his name 50 times in the car. So Biggs I kept hearing Biggs, Andy Biggs, and I thought, I'm going to remember this name. And after he assaulted me, I don't even remember the assault necessarily, but I remember being in the car afterwards and being like really nauseous, sick to my stomach. I was seeing spots, and I mean, the guy beat me until I had broken ribs and was convulsing, turning blue and stuff like that. And the only part of that assault that I can remember is laying on the floor of the room trying to breathe, and I could hear Andy and my dad screaming back and forth at each other. And I can remember Andy Biggs saying, "You said I could do whatever I wanted." My dad saying, "I didn't say you could fucking kill him." And you know, I think they may have actually thrown blows over it, but there was a heated argument and everything going on for an extended period of time. And then I can remember being in the car leaving and just having my eyes closed because my head was spinning and everything, and I was just trying to breathe, just in and out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I remember him so clearly.